looks like we're live. Just getting started, checking my setup here. How's the day going, everybody? It is November 11th. We're starting a minute or two early. You know, sometimes start a little bit late, maybe a minute or two. Even it out by starting a little bit early sometimes, and then sometimes start right on the dot. This is a useful technique I've learned. I'll just put this up as a topic. Could ask the question, how on time should I be? So this might have to do with a meeting or a gathering with friends, whatever it might be. As a rule of thumb, I would generally say arrive between 10 minutes early and on the dot if this is a non-routine meeting. Oh, hi Reaper, welcome to the chat. Reaper says, you should make the Vim link color not dark purple, hard to see on stream. Man, okay. How do I change the Vim color scheme? Let's look. I'm typing Korean. Set Vim color scheme. I forgot how to do this. It's been a while. I'm in PowerShell too, so I don't even know if this is possible. Let's see what I do. Okay, it's the color scheme command. Let's do this. Color scheme. And let's try... How do I list? Maybe if I just hit tab. Oh, that's cool. Industry. Let's try industry. That sounds fun. There, look. Industrial programming. Okay, Reaper. I fulfilled your request without any coding, just with the configuration options. And Reaper here suggests, I opened with this topic about doing stuff on time. Reaper gave me this keyword chronemics, so I'll have to take a look at this. Sounds like right up my alley, just like we might talk about ergonomics or these other fancy terms on this stream. We could also talk about chronemics. Oh, okay, so I'll just finish answering the question I posed to myself. How on time should I be? So as a general rule, I said arrive between 10 minutes early and on the dot if this is a non-routine meeting. If you arrive too early, I think that it could be a bit awkward. For example, you arrive at an office or something, you arrive for some interview or something, you're like 20 minutes early, then the people that are interviewing you or whatever, they might not be ready, so you might be sitting there fiddling your thumbs. At that point, I would probably just like wait in my car or wherever I got there until I'm like 10 minutes early. Then I would walk in about 10 or so minutes early. And then I would say for a routine event, I would oscillate between 15 minutes early to 10 minutes late. So by creating this little window of... it's a window that's a little bit slided early. So the reason that you would do that is because you don't want to set yourself up for some expectation that you cannot meet. So if you set yourself up always to be like on the dot, then if you are caught in traffic or if something happens, then you kind of have on yourself, you have imposed a kind of strictness on yourself. Whereas on the other hand, like if just where you are, maybe you're in the area already and you have to go somewhere, you arrive 15 minutes early and someone's like, oh no, I'm running late. Then you say like, no problem. And then you could just answer messages on your phone or whatever. I mean, hopefully you have things to do. I think, like you could read a good book. There's always something to do. And then if you do happen to be late, of course, obviously you don't try to be really late to something, but sort of landing in this time frame is very practical for a routine event, because it gives people, not just you, it's also about the people that you're meeting, a comfortable little margin, degrees of freedom. There's some technical jargon borrowing from the language of statistics. Degrees of freedom to wiggle in the temporal sense. So I followed this formula for years now, probably at least a decade, and I've always gotten good feedback on my punctuality and attendance for stuff. So I think if you follow this formula, then you win, because you're not overly stressed out and exacting. You have a heuristic or a rule by which you do things, and then likewise you don't perturb the other party by being too clockwork-like or just negligent. So obviously, if you make a commitment to show up somewhere, unless something you have a really pressing reason to do something else, honor your commitments, do your stuff. So, little ramble there, but that's describing why I started 2 minutes early for today's stream. With that being said, let us get on task and start today's stream agenda. Oh, Reaper says you get 0.0001 tokens for completing your side quest. Excellent. Let's see. Let's make Google do some math. 0.0001 BTC to USD. How much is that worth today in the year of our Lord 2021? Okay, they're making us do math. Oh no, they aren't making us do math. Okay, so 0.0001 Bitcoin is about $6.50 US dollars. So Reaper basically says that I get a fancy overpriced latte for fulfilling his request. I'll take it. I'll take that latte. Thank you, Reaper, for your digital kudos there. I'm glad to have been of service to you. Okay, cool. So the first order of business I wanted to talk to today is regarding this YouTube like-dislike stuff. There was something that was brought up in another YouTube channel that I look up sometime, and that is the YouTube channel of this fellow called Mental Outlaw. So I'll show his channel. This guy, he does mainly tech videos, like Linux and software and stuff. He has some specialty in topics like security and IT stuff, where he's pretty knowledgeable. I'll look at his description. I make videos about stuff. Yeah, so as you could tell, I've studied his art of clickbait thumbnails, and I also make my own clickbait thumbnails. Anyways, this guy makes very informative videos sometimes, so I look at his stuff. So I looked at his video right here, why I dislike YouTube removing dislikes. And one thing he mentioned was that in the past, YouTube had different ways of displaying likes and dislikes. So for the historical record, we could go on YouTube right now. And I think the dislike button is still in place. It'll just be a thumbs up, and then a thumbs down, and then a number next to it. But you won't have much of a visual indicator about what that actually means. Turn the camera a bit. Okay, so let's take a look. Elon Musk opens up about aliens. Okay, that's a pretty clickbaity title. Let's click that. We're intrigued. Yeah, so it looks like they do have a bar here under it, but the bar isn't colored, and it's pretty subtle. the color difference between. It's like almost like a battery, empty and full, but it's not. It doesn't stand out visually very much. It's just a monochrome line, and the thumbs up and the thumbs down. It's just presented as text. So let's compare this, what we're seeing here. It doesn't look very visually striking, and let's find a video with a bad ratio. Okay, I'm going to guess that this video has a bad ratio. What do you think? CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky weighs in on kids something. All right, let's look at the ratio. Okay, so this has a ratio of 4K down, 240 up. And you could see here still it's just a monochrome bar, so it's like your battery on your phone's running out, but it's not flashing red and stuff in your face. Now, if you look at old screenshots or even people trying to copy the feature of YouTube, we could see that YouTube had a more informative UI before. So they used to have like likes represented as green and dislikes represented as red. So visually, this actually gives. I'm assuming you're not colorblind or something. If somebody is colorblind or something, you could tell me about your experience. I got a normal vision aside from my glasses here. Anyways, the point is, this sort of ratio, you could very quickly, without even reading the numbers, just by looking at the bar, get a very good sense of the ratio of a video. And even before, like I showed on the YouTube screen that I had, it was monochrome. Then for a while, I think they had it with a blue filled and then a gray for dislike. Then even that stood out more visually. So currently now with the sort of monochrome style that I showed on the videos, it's like a minimum attention to what the like to dislike ratio is. So from a standpoint of YouTube, it's like they want to de-emphasize this more and more and more until finally at this point they're like, we aren't even going to show the number for the dislikes. Is that a UI improvement? What do you all think? It seems that in terms of having a informative user interface, in the sense that they clearly and easily present the information to people, it was in fact better before, and then through digital governance, digital policy, they decided to change an interface that wasn't broken into a different way, not to add features, so to speak, but rather to transform how people use the tool. So, very interesting. But there is just a little history tidbit for the Zoomers that might not have ever been aware that the like and dislike look has changed on YouTube. Another bit of internet history in the not too distant past that I have here to mention, that we've talked about before, was the Facebook Reacts. So for the longest time, Facebook only had the like button. Facebook didn't do a dislike button. It was only the like button. So you could show and give attention to something. But then Facebook wanted to become more nuanced. They wanted more data, so then they made all of these different things. Now, one thing I'm wondering is whether or not YouTube is going to try to add something like this. Because if they take away the dislike, and maybe even disable comments by default or do some other stuff, then how are they going to get more engagement? So if they did something like Facebook Reacts, for instance, like let's pretend someone, they play guitar super, super well, then a lot of people, maybe they'll click wow, or love, right? So YouTube could get what they don't want so much negativity, right? They could get these positive reacts, but different flavor of positive reacts. That might be interesting. Now, I think if they do that, one thing that YouTubers and other people are able to do when there are multiple reacts like this is to create polls. So if I search this, I'll probably find something. Facebook reacts poll. Basically, people will ask some question. Yeah, like here's a kind of goofy one. So let's just say like, oh, what's your favorite food of these items? And then they'll present like voting options, and then people will click on the appropriate reacts to do a vote. So this is, I think this is quite clever on the user, the pollster side, because it's saying Facebook or whoever, they give a mechanism by which you could do this. They didn't design it so much as a polling feature per se, but then if you're a creator and you have an engaged audience, you could make use of this tool that's already available to you in order to ask a question and field results. In linguistics, I think you would call this principle. This goes back to a famous fellow by the name of Ferdinand de Saussure, and we call this the arbitrariness of sine. So I'll just read this. Arbitrariness of sine means there is no logical or intrinsic relationship between signifier, sound pattern, or signified concept. In the same way with like the reacts, for example, you could say you could correspond the different reacts to like a number. You could correspond the reacts to a Pokemon. It doesn't matter. But you have the digital mechanism to do a poll with reacts. So you could get this sort of data that you as a pollster want using the mechanics provided by YouTube or Facebook or whoever, and you don't even need to agree with their semantics or the meanings that they assign with it. Oh, comment by Reaper, he says, do you think YouTube should tell you how many of the right people disliked your video versus how many of the wrong people disliked it? I don't even know if that data is available now, where you could see the identities of the people that liked or disliked stuff. I mean, clearly that information is available because, like, on your account, you could probably see all the videos that you liked and disliked, respectively. So they probably could dredge up those measures. But maybe that's a costly SQL query. Maybe it costs them 5 cents every time someone asks for that information. So they don't do it by default. I don't know. Yeah, I'll make a note about that. Let's change this to terms and stuff. And I'll make a note about some of the things we're talking about, just reference. So I talked about Saussure and the arbitrariness of sine. Yeah, on my own channel, if you look at my Science Lab playlist, I made a video where basically I'm just asking for dislikes because I want to see what happens. So that would be an example of exercising, doing some science with this arbitrariness of the sine idea. Because obviously I'm not saying like dislike my channel in the sense that it's so bad, just ignore it. Like, I'm asking people to do something, but the action I'm asking for is a thumbs down. So I'm asking, like, amp up this one signal, the thumbs down signal, and let's just see what happens when we amp up that signal. So if you haven't done so already, please go to my channel, look at the Science Lab playlist, and downvote my video that I'm asking for downvotes on. In fact, I'd rather, like, for my other videos too, even all my other streams, like, give me a downvote if you want. I'm interested to see what happens. I don't even think downvotes will affect if your video is shared or whatever. So I don't think there's even a connection. So feel free to downvote my content. I'm curious to see what will happen. Cool. So a couple more comments by Reaper. He says YouTube's algo gets to see it. Yeah, YouTube's algorithm gets to see the downvotes, but clearly having a bad ratio doesn't prevent you from being popular on YouTube. There's plenty of featured videos that have a very bad ratio. Though it could be that those people sort of get an artificial boost of some sort. You know, I don't work for YouTube, so I don't know how it works. We're just doing science. We could observe the phenomenon, but we aren't given the secret algorithm revealed. It's not open source. All right, cool. Let us proceed then. So a topic I had for today is, we'll go first to the China stuff. So today is November 11th, and China is referred to as Singles Day, or 光棍节, which is a Chinese word. Literally, it's like bright stick festival or day. So we'll just briefly read this English one right here on Wikipedia, because I thought it had some interesting tidbits. So Singles Day, 光棍节, originally called Bachelor's Day, is a Chinese unofficial holiday and shopping season that celebrates people who are not in relationships. The date, 11th of November, so visually these ones next to each other, was chosen because the numeral 1 represents a bare stick. Okay, so I guess this word guang guan means it's a bare stick. I knew guan was a stick, and guang, it often means like light or bright, something like that, which is Chinese internet slang for an unmarried man who does not add branches to the family tree. Alright, you do not add branches to the family tree. The 4 ones also abstractly refer to the demographic group of single people. Paradoxically, the holiday has become a popular date on which to celebrate relationships. More than 4,000 couples got married in Beijing on this date in 2011, far greater than the daily average of 700 marriages. Oh, people irony posting in real life. Okay, the holiday has become the largest physical retail and online shopping day in the world. So, just as a note, in general, when you're talking about China and China stuff, by the numbers, China will often be at the top. So you could take any activity, like let's say, what is the number 1 country of Python programmers? Somebody might say, oh, I don't know, maybe Germany, they seem high tech, or the USA, they got Silicon Valley. Chances are, by whatever metrics people are using, it's going to be China or India as the top, or maybe well, it depends what you're measuring, but there's gonna, if you're just going by the raw counts as opposed to a proportion of the population, then China is often going to be at the top just because there's a ton of people there. So when we're saying online shopping day in the world, it's probably going to be a largest in terms of like volume of money and people buying stuff, just because there's so many people in China. Now, if instead we framed this issue, this question about what is the largest shopping day in the world, and then we looked at the proportion of people that are involved in the thing, then you might find that actually it's not as big as, say, Black Friday in the U.S. Maybe like proportionally more Americans will go out to Black Friday type sales. However, in China, by the numbers, there will be more people. So this is just the sort of stuff that if you have done any statistics, survey work, you would be familiar with this sort of bias, whatever you want to call it. And when looking at these, top, whatever, that sort of statistics, think about these things, right, when you're interpreting the numbers, because if the question is like, are a lot of Chinese people doing this? It's like, yeah, by the numbers, obviously, everyone's going to agree that a lot of people are doing it. But then proportionally, how big of a thing is it? that's a different question. So let's continue here. Okay, Alibaba, so that's a big Chinese company. I think their stock isn't doing too hot right now. This is not financial advice. Okay, so Alibaba shoppers exceeded 213.5 billion yuan, USD 30.7 billion, in total spending during 2018 Singles Day. Rivals such as JD.com, I think they're a Japanese company. Oh no, Jingdong, that's Chinese. Okay, I saw them in Japan, but they're a Chinese company that I saw operating in Japan then. Hosts Singles Days festivals, that hosts Singles Day festival as well. I'm grammatically triggered. I think something's wrong here. I'm not going to bother to fix Wikipedia now, though. All right, we continue. Which garnered US dollars $19.1 billion, bringing the Chinese total to USD $44.5 billion of total sales volume in 2017. 2019, Alibaba said that it's... Okay, so just big numbers saying that as a shopping holiday, this is actually a thing because we see a lot of money changing hands. And then I'll just show a Chinese source. One of the reasons I want to show this Chinese source too is also to give you guys a little OSINT, open source intelligence about what is the Chinese internet like and how does it differ from the Western internet. So I'm looking at this particular Chinese site from a desktop web browser, but as you could see, I'm not zoomed in or anything. The text is really big. Now, why might that be? An astute web user would say, well, because it's made first for phones, for mobile devices. So, sure enough, we could go ahead and see, like, what would this look like on a iPhone 10, right? And then this would be a very mobile-looking mobile site. Or a Galaxy S5, mobile-looking mobile site. So they took this idea of mobile-first design. Mobile-first design. You could look that up if you're interested in digital marketing and web programming. But they took it to a new level such that they're like a mobile-only design, such that the desktop site appears as an afterthought, as if the people who made the site are expecting basically people are only going to see it on the phone. I'm not going to complain, however, because I think as Chinese characters get pretty small, even if you read Chinese, it's pretty hard to read Chinese characters when they're really small. So when they're already zoomed in like this, to me, a second language learner of Chinese, then it actually makes it easier for me to read on the desktop. I don't have to strain or hurt my eyes to read it. Instead, I could just see clearly. Cool. Yeah, so this article, it's not as long nor as informative as the English one. It just says, right, the day, November 11th. It's popular with young people, and it's a type of, so, 娱乐性, kind of an entertainment holiday, a kind of fun sort of thing, so not a religious holiday or a traditional holiday. And then it explains how the Arabic numeral 1. So look at this linguistic intrigue here. We're using Chinese characters to say 阿拉伯数字 E, the Arabic numeral 1. So talking about different characters in a different script. Very meta. And so it's talking about how it resembles a stick. and how it represents single people. Yeah, so that's the shopping holiday today. I asked one fellow, he's probably stopped into this stream before. I don't know if he said anything. Friend from Hong Kong originally, I believe. And then he mentioned that, yeah, it's kind of like Black Friday in the United States. It's like a shopping holiday, so people might not take the celebrations or anything of that seriously. But it is a day which perhaps, let's pretend you're waiting to buy your AR headset to go into the metaverse. Then perhaps today is the day in which many Chinese people are choosing to make Sword Art Online real. So just we'll show an image of that Sword Art Online for those who aren't anime infected individuals. This was a popular anime that features this concept of virtual reality, where these people, they put on these headsets and they dive into these worlds. So we could say that these ideas of the metaverse, of AR, of VR, it's been presented to people for a long time. So what a fitting day we have with Guangguanjie to give people an occasion to plunge into the metaverse. Cool. So it looks like we don't have any further comments or questions about Singles Day in China, but I just wanted to at least point that out and discuss it briefly because it is that day. Okay, so another topic I have listed in my description is this interesting phenomenon. So I put like an image of Master Chief from Halo here. Actually, I think Xali has a thing about Microsoft and the Cortana assistant. So this is a Microsoft America corporation where Master Chief, he's this faceless, you don't see his face. All the games he's just going around in his suit. But one of the plot things, big parts of the plot, and this is not a spoiler, this is introduced from the first game, is that he has this blue digital girl that's like talking to him in his suit. Look, so some gamer here made a video celebrating the love of Master Chief and Cortana. So there's Master Chief talking with Cortana. But this isn't just Microsoft that has hopped onto this theme. This idea of like a digital female assistant, for whatever reason, it's in all sorts of places. Apple, of course, has Siri. Amazon, I think by default, Alexa is also a female voice. So if you choose Amazon as your corporate spouse, whatever you want to call it, then they will also offer the single males a soothing female voice. And then finally, one of them that really caught the attention of the internet meme people was Samsung made this Sam virtual assistant. So she's like this, I don't know if she's supposed to be like Korean. She looks kind of Eurasian to me. Anyway, Samsung made this character. You could see she's like a digital avatar thing, but she's taking selfies and stuff. Then you got like people that are cosplaying as Samsung's character. So they're kind of rolling with the memes here. I don't really have much to say about this besides that, look, we have an example here. I just gave examples from Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Samsung, all kind of making their own female assistant character. So if we're talking about modern society and these sorts of topics and how there's a lot of like single men using technology, this idea, then are they trying to sort of give people digital assistant like people to make people feel like, I don't know, there's some kind of digital boss or something? I don't know what's going up with this, but interesting trend there. So please feel free to leave a comment, ask some questions about that. I don't have a red-pilled analysis to offer on this, besides to say, if my computer is just like a stupid box and I type in text and it reliably saves my files and stuff, then that's fine. I don't need to pretend my computer is a person. Though it looks like there's a lot of money and effort going into people trying to make their computers more personalized. So very, very interesting. Reaper says, do you think it'd be better if the digital assistant was a virtual cat? Why a cat? Why don't instead we have a virtual paperclip? A helpful paperclip that could assist us when we're trying to do work on our computer. Maybe we don't even need a cat. Cool. Alright, so there we have covered the topic of female digital assistants, and I'm giving quotes because like they're probably based off female voice recordings, but of course these are programs that get copied and pasted across millions, if not billions, of machines. So it's not like a unique person in your life. It's like a unified service, digital service, software as a service that these companies are offering to people. And are they popular? Personally, from people I know, I'll just use Windows as an example. As you can see, I'm using Windows here on this computer. Like I have Cortana and all that stuff disabled. I just like to press buttons on my computer. I don't like to use all of these smart features. They might be running, I just assume that they're tracking all sorts of stuff on my computer. But I will ask the audience, do you all use things like Siri or Alexa or Cortana on your computers? Or is that something that gets in the way or is more annoying or creepy than it is helpful? So you will tell me. Alright, let's transition to our next topic, and that'll be continuing this Melancholy of Subculture Society book. Or not book, article. So we're done with Putnam and bowling. That was last stream. So check out yesterday's stream, number 10, if you're interested in seeing more of that. But we'll continue reading this essay because I'm finding it pretty interesting. Reaper mentions to my question, replying to my question about do you use these digital assistance things on your computer, he says, I don't even use code completion. Yeah, you do stuff manually, you learn, you remember a lot. Being forced to slow down is very helpful. So it's probably made you a better technologist by not using these automatic features. A winner is you. What a perfect transition, okay? You don't use code completion, a winner is you. So looks like we got a quote by Czesław Milos. So maybe that's a Polish name or a Czech name. All right, this person says, "You are right, Gene. I don't know how to care about the salvation of my soul. Some are called, others manage as well as they can. I accept it. What has befallen me is just. I don't pretend to the dignity of a wise old age, untranslatable into words. I choose my home in what is now." Okay, let's see what the context for this is. Oh, we have some new friends joining. Hey, Cortez Phoenix says, "Good evening to all." And we have Yagan, who says, "What if I don't want to be a better technologist? What if I just want to dance?" What I have to say to you, Yagan, is stop dancing, sit down, and practice the organ. You're not going to become the next Bach overnight. Discipline yourself. Busy your feet with those pedals. So, kind of inside joke. Sorry, friends that aren't aware. Yagan is a musician who does some dancing and does some keyboard playing. And he had recently got access to an organ. So I am just jesting with him that he should practice the organ, because I think that's cool. He could become a cultural treasure. A cultural treasure of intangible value. Okay, another quote. "The ability to play chess is the sign of a gentleman. The ability to play chess well is the sign of a wasted life." Paul Morphy. Who is this guy? That's a pretty funny quote. Paul Charles Morphy, an American chess player. Okay, so he's irony posting a little bit here. He is considered to have been the greatest chess master of his era and is often considered the unofficial world chess champion. A chess prodigy, he was called the pride and sorrow of chess because he had a brilliant chess career but retired from the game while still young. Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's continue. To judge by many people's revealed preferences. That's an interesting future topic that we could do. Let's add that to our list. Revealed preferences. And that will also go in line with this topic we started about surveys, statistics, stuff like that. We could talk more about revealed preferences and finding out about what people are actually doing, not just what they self-report. So, make note of that. Okay, to judge by many people's revealed preferences, work is what is most important to them. Yet the common saying goes that on one's deathbed, no one wishes they'd spent more weekends in the office. Is Jiro Dreams of Sushi admirable or horrible? So I believe that's a movie, Japanese language American documentary film, and it's about probably a guy who's obsessed with the sushi business. I think I had some family members describe this movie to me. So, right. Okay. Particularly the treatment of Jiro's two sons and his minimal relationship with his own wife gives one pause for thought. Speaking of Jiro, it's worth noting that the protagonist of world-famous director Hayao Miyazaki, The Wind Rises, is also named Jiro. Speaking of Miyazaki, there are some interesting remarks by his son Goro Miyazaki. Oh man, we're in some serious weeb posting hours. Let's check the chat. So Yagan says, "My organ teacher is making me do book exercises. It is humiliating." He likes the Paul Morphy quote. Yagan says he used to play with half his pieces removed and still win. So that's speaking to his ability as a chess player, as a prodigy. And then Yagan remarks that the guy from this first quote, Czesław Milos, Polish poet who writes about totalitarianism and communism. All right. Okay, so he's Polish. Okay. Czesław Miłosz. Polish-American poet, prose writer, translator, and diplomat. Voices man's exposed condition in a world of severe conflicts. Alright, might have to take a look at him later. Let's return to Japanese topics. So we have a block quote in the box. Hayao Miyazaki, to me, is 0 marks as a father, full marks as a director. Goro Miyazaki writes, my father was almost never at home. That's why for me, when I was a child, my mother had to fill the place of my father. My father came home every day in the middle of the night after I had already gone to sleep. He was always very conscientious in this regard. Apparently, no matter how late it was, he always made sure that he came home. But almost every Saturday and Sunday, he was still at work regardless. That's why, from my earliest awareness to the present day, I hardly ever had a chance to talk to him. He always came back after I was asleep, and when I left for school at 8 o'clock, he was still asleep. That's why when I was in elementary school, before going to school, I often used to go and look in the bedroom to see if my father was there or not. My father threw himself completely into his work. Not only did he not look after the children, he never did a single bit of housework, so my mother did all of that. My mother was also an animator, but when my younger brother was born, just before I started going to elementary school, my father changed workplaces and his work got even busier than before. So the result was that in order to bring up the children, my mother had no choice but to give up being an animator. Okay. So, a account by the son of a famous director of animated films. The Gwern.net author of this blog post continues. For a great artist, one could perhaps justify the cost, but for other people... Okay, so pertinent question here. So it's saying, like, in pop culture, right, we have these stories of these obsessive genius types who put everything into their art. So it's like, all right, maybe you could get away with that if you're actually at the top, if you're the greatest. But, you know, what if you're just some schmuck? What if you're a normie? What if you aren't at the top? Then if you did that sort of thing, well, what is the meaning of that? A phenomenon in various fields is Lutka's law. So what is Lutka's law? All right, so this is some statistical regularity. All right. Oh, so here the author helpfully says what it is. I don't have to read Wikipedia, which is an exponential power law for number of publications per authors. Most publish few, but few publish many. Okay. Simonton, decades later, would formulate the equal odds rule, which says that in general no scientist has a larger batting average than others do. The outsized difference in performance stem from simply the greats publishing a great deal. All right. One thinks of Gauss's unpublished notebooks revealed to contain many mathematical discoveries found by later mathematicians. When the mathematical historians finally went through them all, or of the gems buried in the notes of the American logician Charles Sanders Peirce. So this guy, Charles Sanders Peirce, also note, he's famous for looking into symbols and the field of semiology. So I'll add that to the terms. Semiology. And then I'll just mention this guy, Charles Sanders Peirce. Okay. Gwern.net guy continues, hence Lutka's law extends to the actual discoveries. Most make a few, but a few make many more than they should. Charles Murray, okay, so this was the bell curve guy I mentioned, I think, remarks in Human Accomplishment on the graphs of great artists or scientists as measured by how many different textbooks or encyclopedias thought they were important enough to mention, that they exhibit, no matter how you try to recalculate or adjust them, an extraordinary imbalance with many minor figures and just a few universal figures. As Lutka's law predicts, this is odd, since the distribution looks nothing like a bell curve or normal distribution, as one would predict if greatness were only based on IQ, or only on hard-workingness, or only on wealth. So you count stuff, you look at measurements, it's not going to follow the distribution of other kind of innate things about people. Some of this is network or Matthew effects, but the simplest explanation is that greatness requires multiple traits. One must be intelligent and hardworking and not desperately poor and ... many which are normal distributions or similar, and when requirements multiply out, what is left is a fast shrinking distribution, like Lutka's law. Alright, Yagin has a couple comments. He says, Peirce is known in computer science as well, under the Curry-Howard isomorphism. Peirce's law is the type of continuation operators, e.g. col/cc and scheme. Alright, Yagin, your big brain comment could live in the chat, which gets published a few hours after the video is saved, and the people that know what these things are could look that up. I will not try to elaborate on that which I do not understand at this time. Cool. Yeah, so I'll just pause here to make a note that so we look at how this Gordon.net fellow is talking about, and I guess you could say reasoning in this paragraph. When you're talking about distribution, statistics, all this stuff, this of course is the bread and butter of quantitative studies, right? So the way that this person is talking is affirming this quantitative framework or approach to stuff, because quantitative stuff is being cited as evidence. So that is important to note, I think. Not to say that it's right or wrong, but for the listeners of this stream, as we have talked about stuff like the limitations of what statistics could tell you, and how the different models that go into informing a statistical study themselves contain, well, it's a model, right? So it approximates the world in a particular way. Often people, through quantitative studies, you're going to find the stuff that you're looking for. So I have I'll just give an example, like a really dumb illustration of this, but it might be memorable. Let me go grab a prop really quick. So, like if I could make a model, like I'll say I have a coin here, and if I flip this coin in the heads and it comes up heads, then that means I'm headed in a good direction today. And then if it comes up tails, then that means I'll have a sad tale to tell. Okay, so I just arbitrarily made something up. Okay, but then I could flip this coin many times, so it came up tails. Oh, sad tale to come, right? And I could keep on doing this and actually collect a lot of data, right? But in this very contrived example, of course, the example model I gave just with this coin, it's like a total trash model. So even if I collect all this data, because my model sucks and it's no good, then it doesn't even matter, how much of a huge huge data set or whatever I have. If my premises are wrong that go into informing the model, then it's no good. So I think sometimes you get people, they like numbers, they like their statistics, but if you never take the time to go into why these people's particular studies or findings or whatever are valid based on looking at the assumptions behind what they're doing, then I think that you could mislead yourself by taking on a whole bunch of unwarranted assumptions that lead you to basically speculate and be wrong about how the world works. But with that being said, let's continue. And okay, so looks like Yogin is generously giving a definition of col/cc for posterity. So thank you, Yogin, for typing that out. Our channel just became more educational. All right, we continue. One of the requirements for great work in any field is that one must be motivated. One must think one's work or the field vitally important. It's hard to become a chess grandmaster if one has contempt for devoting one's life to studying the minutiae of an arbitrary set of rules whose mastery has no utility to anything else whatsoever. I believe that this may lead to a paradox of expertise, a winner's curse. Those most likely to have achieved world-class mastery of a topic are systematically the most likely to be self-deluding or badly mistaken about its value. The grandmasters in many fields claim their field is uniquely important, which of course cannot be true in general, or uniquely satisfying to them, which seems improbable as any person can have sampled but few of life's wares. Dinosaur comics on the topic of world-class violinists started in very early youth asks, what are the odds a 6-year-old would know what a 30-year-old wants to do? Okay, so more here. With this paragraph too, we could see how the probability language is injected in the Gwern.net guy's prose. Like, what are the odds a 6-year-old would know what a 30-year-old wants to do? I don't know. Like, is that a question to ask about probabilities? Or would you say, like, how could a 6-year-old learn from a 30-year-old and vice versa? You know, there's other ways to sort of talk about what kids do, the relationship between parents and children, and how parents raise children to do certain things that isn't talking in terms of probability and odds and stuff. But I would say I don't want to use the word bias here, but I can't think of a better word. One of the biases of a lot of quantitative research type people is to frame stuff in the language of statistical frameworks, gambling, probability, this sort of stuff. All right, Yogin is self-aware. He mentions that he's spurging. Yeah, that's okay. You know, you're the only guy who's spoken in the chat for the last 20 or so messages. So you go right ahead in that safe space. Cool. All right, so yeah, sort of my comment about the language that's being used here. Oh, another note I wanted to make about this motivation. So you could ask, what do people learn in school? You know, when people are studying fields like psychology or education, what are the big brain conclusions they come to? So one field that I studied was linguistics, and a sort of peripheral topic to that is second language learning. So I've looked at some literature, academic literature related to second language learning, and you know, they'll have this like really big brain epiphany, like, oh, you know what is very important for second language learners? It's motivation. And it's like, did you need to get a master's degree to figure that out? Like, clearly, we could just see how that's the case, where it's like, if somebody is motivated and wants to learn a thing, then, certainly that would help them learn it. Like, it's not, this should not be surprising to anybody. Yet, like, I searched second language learner motivation, and this isn't Google Scholar, so scholarly resources, 1.5 million results. And then, countless papers about, role of teachers and learner motivation. Okay, more teachers on motivation. Looking at second learners' motivation, discursive construction of motivation, enhancing motivation, blog-mediated pure feedback on motivation. So, all this talk about different motivation stuff. But yeah, clearly, if you're motivated to do something, that's an important factor in determining if you're gonna succeed at it. Okay. Jorgen says, the only safe space for me is the one where I'm the only person in it. That's a profound remark. And that's what we're trying to fix on this channel. So, sales pitch, where we gather here on this stream. We have these live shows and stuff, so that we don't just sit there trying to motivate ourselves to look and think and care about stuff that nobody else looks at, thinks, or cares about, or very few people do. Rather, we speak with one another and we find the things that we share in common and products. Or not products. We find, we learn how to make requests of one another and how to ask and receive from each other. And in that way, we stay motivated to do things because we know at least one other person cares about it. I think a lot of stuff works that way, where it's like, it's not just you playing a video game by yourself, you versus an impersonal computer. Rather, even at a fast food restaurant, you order a burrito. Well, the person that's serving the burrito knows how to please you, the customer, by making you the burrito, and then you give them money, right? So by having these exchanges, by giving and receiving and fulfilling requests, that's how we show each other how we could trust one another, and that's a lot of the economy of life. Yes, Jorgen says products consume. Yes, we're talking about how does consume help bring people together. I think the way that consume helps bring people together a lot of the time is we have to ask people for things that they can do, and then when we faithfully fulfill or able to deliver a service to people, then the consume the consume aspect of the relationship helps people. And through continually doing that, then we all win. We all get the big bucks. On the other hand, if you're studying how to play chess by yourself, by just playing computers, hundreds and hundreds of games by yourself, and nobody is asking you to do that, maybe you could stay interested by some weird fervor, but I think that it is contrary to our nature as people to do that, and that is why we get the remarks by this chess player, Paul Morphy. Now I'm interested in looking more at what Paul Morphy has to say, because this quote here, the ability to play chess well is a sign of a wasted life. That's very interesting. All right, we continue. One sees this in chess. Various chess figures extol its applicability to finance with no evidence, or claim it is applicable to politics, despite the analogy being tenuous at best. And chess nutritional supplements or dual in back, failing for the last 60 years, and cited chess studies being either methodologically suspect or contradictory. Is chess really something to spend one's life on? World chess champion Magnus Carlsen said something interesting in early 2010. So I've heard this guy's name. I think he's a much more recent guy. Yeah, so born in 1990. He was a millennial generation. Let's see what Magnus Carlsen has to say. Okay, Carlsen says, I have no idea what my IQ is. I wouldn't want to know it anyway. It might turn out to be a nasty surprise. Spiegel, why? You are 19 years old and ranked the number one chess player in the world. You must be incredibly clever. Carlsen, and that's precisely what would be terrible. Of course, it is important for a chess player to be able to concentrate well, but being too intelligent can also be a burden. It could get in your way. I am convinced that the reason the Englishman John Noon never became world champion is that he is too clever for that. At the age 15, Noon started studying mathematics in Oxford. He was the youngest student in the last 500 years, and at 23, he did a PhD in algebraic topology. He has so incredibly much in his head, simply too much. His enormous powers of understanding and his constant thirst for knowledge distracted him from chess. Spiegel, things are different in your case, and Carlsen says, right, I am a totally normal guy. My father is considerably more intelligent than I am. All right, interesting quotes. Gwern.net guy continues, can we exempt subcultures from this line of thought? Are those who become Ota kings only a folly? This is the curse of knowledge. Those who know do not do, and those who do not know do. Okay, so we have this ending line here about the curse of knowledge. So is there any point to it? Is it just reflection? What is it about? I leave that up for Gwern.net guy to say as we go down this. Oh, we're almost done with this article, actually. So why don't we just finish this up so we could close this window. Oh, Xali says hi. Yo, Alan and gang. And hi, Yagin. So hi to Xali. Thanks for joining the stream. We're finishing up this article, The Melancholy of Subculture Society. Link in the show notes to the right, and it will be in the description as well. Okay, we have a quote here from some guy called Gibson in some essay or something, Shiny Balls of Mud. What's this about? The Secret of Tokyu Hands. So that's a department store in Japan. Tokyu Hanzu is that everything on offer there inclines ultimately to the status, if not the perfection, of Hikaru Dorodango. What is that? Dorodango, mud dumpling, a Japanese art form in which earth and water are molded, then carefully polished to create a delicate shiny sphere resembling a billiard ball. Okay, I think I've seen these, but I did not know they were called Dorodango. But now we know. The brogues shined lovingly enough for long enough with those meticulously imported shoe care products must ultimately become a universe unto themselves, a conceptual sphere of lustrous and infinite depth, such as a life lived silently enough in sufficient solitude becomes a different sort of sphere, no less perfect. Okay, so it seems this essay, Shiny Balls of Mud, it's about these Hikaru Dorodango things. Hikaru, it's like light, shine, and then Dorodango. Doro, it's like mud, and then Dango is the dumpling or the bowl that it's referring to. So shiny mud bowl would be what this literally means. And then continuing here. Oh, let's see what Xali has to say. The Melancholy of Subculture Society, a memeable title. Yes, we have been drawn in by the clickbait. Xali says he knows the Gwern guy, and he's a weird dude. Okay, interesting. If all this I'm reading of him is public, so I'll ask, if anything's private that you know about him, like let us not gossip. But if there is something public that he's said or is known for, then we could talk about public stuff. All right, continuing. Society, looked at objectively, has a lot of downsides. For anyone who hasn't already bought into society, who isn't perfectly suited for it, becoming a hikikomori is a halfway logical reaction. They have the reasons, and we can even tie the justifications to scientific results. We'll talk about that once we finish reading. If someone really prefers their subculture, which gives them mental ease and physical health, then what right do the rest have to interfere and drag them into the main culture? Large homogeneous cultures are accomplished only with great effort and much bloodshed of body and mind. Their benefits are unclear, and their justifications transparently self-serving. Perhaps we should accept gracefully the inevitable sundering of national cultures and learn to operate within a truly multicultural world, each of us with a niche of our own, or respectfully, if uncomprehending, terms with all the other subcultures. And then there's a closing quote by David Foster Wallace, who was quoted earlier in this article. He says, "I think he's both lucky and unlucky. He will say he is happy and mean it. Wish him well." So this sounds like if somebody says they're happy and they mean it, kind of implying maybe unlucky in that if someone is truly able to fit in with society, then they lack knowledge. They're just a doer, but they don't know nothing about what's going on. So they should not be happy, but you could wish them well. It seems that's what David Foster Wallace is saying here to me. So Xa says he chatted with the Gwern guy during the Google Plus days. Yes, a bygone era. Google Plus, a now defunct Google attempt at a social network site. And Reaper says Gary Vaynerchuk just interviewed Zuck. Okay, I'm not so familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, but if this is an interesting video to check out, we might have to look at it later. Let me talk about this phrase I highlighted really quick from the Gwern.net article. So, yeah, he's saying becoming a hikikomori is a halfway logical reaction. They have their reasons, and we can even tie the justifications to scientific results. So the key things I want to highlight, and let me add a term here. I'll add the term. Okay, whatever. Solipsism. So kind of collapsing into your own self and your own things. And we talked about them already, but we could talk more about presuppositions. What you suppose to be true going in. So I mentioned, like, looking at this Gwern guy and the stuff he says, he's citing all this quantitative study, that sort of thing. So if you start from certain presuppositions, certain premises of how you understand the world, then to do the hikikomori thing is, he describes it, Gwern.net guy describes it as a halfway logical reaction, meaning you could see how this sort of lifestyle would follow. So let us just break down how you might say that such a choice is logical. So if you view like the outside world, everything that's going on, you say the world is a cruel and chaotic place, but I could carve out my own existence playing like a very limited kind of game, like just me focusing on my little subculture, and through doing that, I could get, what do you want to call it? I could get dopamine hits. I could have all the psychological things that would make me happy in some sense, the choice to live a hikikomori life could be a much more effective delivery path to do that than, let's say, to work at a corporate job. So some people, their life might be more complicated because, let's say, they work a lot of hours. They work 12 hours every day at a corporate job that they don't want. So they could buy like a big house, and let's say they have like a girlfriend, wife, is always complaining about them, putting pressure on them, right? So you could say that that sort of person, they're actually being less efficient. They're not being logical in terms of amount of effort that they put in and the sort of results that they derive from their thing. They might appear very successful in mainstream society by what they're doing, by putting in all this effort and climbing certain ladders. But if their internal state is such that they're not happy with it, then what's the point? So the hikikomori thing is logical in the sense that it might be a more efficient path in order to get the right brain chemicals firing. If you just choose to like win at chess or some very local controlled game, and you aren't recognized by society at large, but within your little narrow thing, you withdraw into your little world, and then there you're recognized, then wow, lo and behold, you actually found a niche. The word used here, each of us with a niche of our own, on respectful if uncomprehending terms with all the other subcultures. So the sort of diversity that's being discussed here is like, well, we could have an infinite number of these little niches. So if everybody just carves out their own little weird subculture weirdo niche, and then they're the top person in their little automatic reconnects seem to be successful enough. On YouTube, I now I have like a little green light. It says excellent connection. So apparently my connection is excellent. I don't know about that. Maybe it's just polling for the last 5 seconds or something. I don't know. All right, let's talk about the Greeks. So Jacques Ellul book. Continuing. So just now, I'll highlight in the stream notes. We've been reading this book, The Technological Society by Jacques Ellul, 1954, French author, because this book is talking about technology and society. Probably the main topic we've been talking about on this stream. So we're looking at the historic literature for this, as well as spin off these other blogs and things of people that might know about this. We're looking at who are the people who have been talking about these topics even pre-internet era, and what do they have to say. And this is all connected with, we see Zuck's metaverse, and this sort of line of analysis we're looking at are, what are the historical precedents, what have people been talking about, and why is this whole metaverse nothing new under the sun? How have we been hearing about this idea, the ideas that are going into the metaverse for a long, long time? And they're reading all this stuff, so I haven't read any of this stuff myself before. I think it's pretty clear that you have all these literary people and also like business people, whatever, that have been talking about these ideas for a long time. So nothing is surprising, basically, but it's interesting to see. You read this stuff and sometimes it seems oddly predictive. It's almost like a blueprint for what is to come, as opposed to, it's a coincidence. It's more like these ideas were with people for whatever reasons, and then actively you have people inspired or whatever by these works that seek out to build these systems, even if it is to build a melancholy, it's a melancholy of subculture society. That doesn't sound like everyone's doing better. Why would someone go ahead and make that thing? Yet, here we are reading books from decades and decades ago, and we see that these things that people have been writing about for a long time, these systems continue to be built out. Let's see. Jorman Molina says the meta is just idealism. By idealism here, are you talking about like German idealism? You could let him clarify. They think that the reality is wrong. Okay. Yeah, so it's like you want to make a parallel universe. Reality works in a certain way, and this is the whole. It's like these angry nerd wizards are like, I don't like the reality that we're given. So the angry nerd wizards want to build a whole nother layer of reality that they have control over. So the nerd wizards are like, yeah, the way the world works, like I'm always getting slighted. Why am I at the bottom? But then if they could control all these levers of power, including ultimately, finance, food, stuff like that, then the nerd wizards would like to bring in a technocracy that they could build in their own image. That's a quite over the top way to summarize it, but I think that basis is here. And as we're looking at this Jacques Ellul book, then we're seeing how all this talk about magic and stuff has been with the theorists since the beginning. So let's continue here. Jacques Ellul writes, the Greeks, however, were the first to have a coherent scientific activity and to liberate scientific thought. But then a phenomenon occurred which still astonishes historians: the almost total separation of science and technique. Alright, I think I read this last stream, but I'll just read it again here anyways. Doubtless the separation was less absolute than the example of Archimedes has led historians to believe, but it is certain that material needs were treated with contempt, that technical research was considered unworthy of intellect, and that the goal of science was not application but contemplation. Plato shunned any compromise with application. Intellectual stuff was important to them. So the Greeks weren't just looking at like a lot of change on the world. Then why would you waste that on just material needs? Similar to like with the subculture stuff, you could say, why would you waste your abilities just on playing chess or something? Why would you waste your energy on that? So looks like we got some stream connectivity problems. Oh no. Muchos problemas.